Kamen Rider J is an interesting film. It was released only 1 year after Kamen Rider ZO, and other than J sharing a very similar design with ZO, maybe even too similar since it can be difficult to remember who was who, the film isn't an attempt to do just the same thing as the last movie. The way the story is presented is different, the flow of the action is different, and an effort to make a notably different film was made. The result? Well, not to get ahead of myself, but meh. I went into the film wanting to like it. I've only seen one person saying that they weren't that into the movie, but that ended up being the only response to J that I've seen to this point. Mentions of ZO from this point onward will be limited. We're going to try to keep judgments of J to be from how it stands on its own, and not constantly compare it to a film that it would admittedly be fair to contrast it with. The Earth is in a state of crisis. As it so happens, so is the one in the movie. But unlike our Earth, this one has a hero ready to fight for it, with explosive bike riding. After the title sequence, we are introduced to our antagonists, the Fog Mother and her servants, who are preparing to undergo a sacrifice for a ritual. We then meet our hero, a photographer camping in the woods, talking with a small child. Their conversation is very brief as they are interrupted by the servants. They swoop in, kidnap the child, Kana, and tear a hole into the photographer before throwing his body off a cliff. What they're unaware of, however, is that a certain bug was watching. The photographer, named Koji Sagawa, is operated on and returns to life.
Kana-chan!
The people who saved him are called Chikujin, or as the translation went with, groundlings. They can't go to their Earth's surface themselves, so they entrust Koji, who was chosen for his ability to feel Earth's pain, to use his new access to J power to fight the fog that threatens the Earth as Kamen Rider J. Koji and his new sidekick Barry return to the mountains with the holy power Koji now has, alerting the Fog Mother of his presence. One of the trio, named Agito, goes out to attack him. And he's using the abandoned construction equipment. How resourceful. Agito transforms into a monstrous appearance that looks okay, causing Koji to do his own transformation. The fight plays out how you might expect someone to fight a giant reptile. I'd almost say it's realistic even, but then I'd need to look up actual footage of that, and if the human isn't dressed up like an insect, then what's the point? J starts to get thrown around a bit, necessitating a move that leans into some of the brutality we saw in the last movie. I thought this monster wasn't too realistic looking, but dang, I really felt it when Jay just jams his fingers into Agito's eye, leading him to him screaming. Unless he actually punched him, but it's kind of hard to see exactly. Props to the damage effect on Jay here, by the way. It goes a long way to making it seem like Koji himself has physically transformed instead of just donning armor. Agito attempts to retreat up the side of the cliff, letting our Kamen Rider do something that I can't help but get a bit too excited to see. Jay punches him in the brain. Movie didn't have to get this violent, but it does work. After the battle is over, we finally get to learn more about Koji. He's here to study the effects of pollution on an ecosystem that's been essentially destroyed. This is also where he met Kana, who was burying small animals that had died. It's an eerie scene, with the music choice being absolutely perfect.
何してるの?
お墓死んじゃったから。鳥もリスも虫たちも。
奴らは俺を狙ってきた。カナちゃんは巻き添えになったんだ。
Koji presses on into the enemy fog and encounters Zu, his next opponent. The fight starts interesting, with Zu having some kind of an illusion that almost lets her drop Koji to his death before he transforms and fights back on his motorcycle. The fight is interrupted as Fog Mother's battleship appears. Painful movie, painful. Zhu ends up flying Jay into the battleship before succumbing to her injuries.
お前はなぜ壊れない？この星の生き物ではないのか？この星の生き物はすぐ壊れる。つまらない音を立てて。その子を返せ!
Fogmother shows Koji a vision of what is to happen to the Earth by way of showing what happened to the dinosaurs.
今からおよそ7000万年前、地球はまだ恐竜の時代であった。
今よみがえった5人の戦士たち。恐竜戦隊ジュレンジャー!
In actuality, it was the hatchlings of Fogmother from an earlier invasion that led to the extinction of the dinosaurs. Garai, the last remaining servant, sends Kana off to be sacrificed before starting to beat on Koji.
仮面ライダー J!
Jay defeats Garai with a rider kick, but is caught in a tight space before he can go to save Kana. Just when things look hopeless, Barry, the groundlings, and nature itself channel more J power to Jay, allowing him to take on a giant form. This was the only thing I knew about Kamen Rider J before going into the film. It's a unique ability with only a few others being able to do something similar. Jay fights the battleship, and it sure is a fight that happens. I've been skipping over fight details because I really only need to bring up the important parts of them and other things that make them stand out. The fight with Garai lasted much longer than the 5 seconds I spent talking about it. The previous fights were entertaining, and this one just barely is. There's lots of explosions and it's well scored, but it doesn't feel as exciting as it should be for the climax. Jay's movements are very lumbering. It makes sense, he's a big guy in the scene, but it doesn't really make for something that matches the action in the rest of the movie. It doesn't help that he's fighting a ship and not a giant monster, but maybe that's not important. And that's basically it. Fogmother tries to take Jay down with her, he punches her and escapes the explosion, and we see our main characters enjoying nature. Credits. Kamen Rider J is okay, painfully so. The story includes a message about the environment. Rider J's J power comes from living things, and even former living things, although that isn't stated explicitly in the film itself. The only thing said about J power itself is that it's a holy power. Kamen Rider J is a green superhero in both meanings of the word. The scene before Agito goes on the attack has a bit that I left out for the synopsis. Koji says how awful it is that the environment on the mountain has been ruined, and Barry explains that it was a construction project that ran out the animals living there. This exchange, bringing up the environment, lasts for a half a minute before the action starts up again. I chose to leave out this dialogue in the synopsis because it comes across as superfluous. The flashback with Koji photographing dead birds and Kana burying dead animals is 3 things. He is much more powerful with this imagery, it establishes our 2 human characters' character and reasons for being there, and happens almost right after Jay defeats Agito, putting it in a close enough spot to the earlier scene to the point where the earlier one could have been left out. The importance of the environmental message of the film is somewhat held back overall. Environmental destruction is not stated to have led to Fogmother's return or anything like that. I think maybe if they had actually tied it into the proceedings of the story, it would have been more effective. Here's what I came up with after sitting here for what was probably too long of a period of time. It is through environmental power and life that Fog is defeated. We have a collaborative power that is strong enough to face the crisis, in the same way that people in real life need to work together to tackle environmental issues. That power needs to be used to support life on this planet. Or at least, that's one way of looking at it. Is the film telling us this subtly, or am I giving it too much credit? Well, I can't be certain about that. What I am certain of is that this theory would be undercut by the fact that deceased animals are able to send J power. I want to say that destruction of the environment makes that power weaker and emboldens the crises, but that part of the film is fighting me on this. Characterization is minimal, then in favor of the tight pacing. We know that Koji is here to study environmental damage, but not for what purpose. Is he a journalist, an activist, a scientist? It doesn't matter. Ultimately, though, we know he's a good guy with the willingness to put others before himself, which is usually to be expected in these kinds of roles. And everyone else? Kana is a good-natured child. Fogmother and her children exist, and Barry... Well, I don't want to just write him off, but Barry would work better in a longer film. After Koji takes off after being revived, Barry fills the role of sidekick so that Koji has someone to talk to. The issue here is that there isn't much dialogue between the two of them. This isn't a character piece, but it does stick out after multiple viewings just how little there is. As for the overall story being told here, it's simple. Maybe too simple. Aliens show up, kidnap a child, and a guy gains the power of the Earth to go save her. There are very brief inserts of backstory and the environmental commentary spliced in early on, but that's it. A little less than half of the runtime, counting the intro and ending credits, is made up of action. It's certainly not a boring movie, it's not hard to sit through, but it leaves a lot to be desired. If you would like to see it for yourself, Toei has it up on their YouTube channel, and it has the same problems as the ZO upload. Really low picture quality and in letterboxed 4x3. Toei, why? Is there actually another company that co-owns the rights to these versions of these movies that don't look like you recorded them off a TV with a VCR? Thank goodness there's that other release that was announced at the end of 2021 that I mentioned in my ZO review from a year ago. What's that? There's still no word on when that's coming out? Wonderful. Kamen Rider's availability outside of Japan has steadily been getting better over the last few years. So hopefully whatever's holding back this release, even if it's not one I'm crazy about, gets resolved. Maybe even by the time I get around to wrapping up these reviews of this unconnected trilogy by finally talking about the first one. We'll see how this plays out.